What if I told you that hidden within the DNA of Koreans lies an ancient story of migrations, survival, and cultural exchanges that shaped not just the Korean peninsula but also East Asia as a whole? Korean DNA isn't just a series of genetic markers. It's a living history book, connecting modern Koreans to their ancestors and to neighboring civilizations through thousands of years of evolution. The story of Korean DNA is unlike any other. Positioned at the crossroads of East Asia, Korea served as a gateway for ancient populations traveling between northern and southern regions. It became a melting pot where different genetic lineages met, mingled, and evolved into what we now recognize as the uniquely Korean genetic identity. But what's even more fascinating is the paradox of this identity. Koreans are one of the most genetically homogeneous populations in the world, yet their DNA tells a tale of rich and diverse ancestry. How is that possible? Scientists have only recently begun to unravel these mysteries through cutting-edge genetic studies. By examining ancient remains and comparing them with modern populations, researchers have discovered that Korean DNA holds clues to ancient migrations, the spread of technologies like agriculture, and the blending of cultures that once defined East Asia. But what sets Korean DNA apart from its neighbors, like the Chinese, Japanese, or Mongolians? Why does it carry traces of both northern hunter-gatherers and southern farmers? And what can this DNA teach us about human history and evolution? Today, we'll delve deep into the genetic makeup of Koreans, exploring what makes their DNA so special. We'll uncover the ancient migrations that laid the foundation for Korea's unique heritage, the fascinating connections to Jomon ancestry, and the modern implications of these discoveries for science and medicine. By the end of this journey, you'll see why Korean DNA is not just a story of genetics but a window into the history of humanity itself. So, get ready to dive into the untold secrets of Korean genetics. It's a journey that starts with a simple question. What makes Korean DNA so special? The answer might just change the way you think about human history. Korean DNA tells a story of remarkable complexity, shaped by geography, migration, and time. To truly understand what makes Korean DNA so special, we first need to explore its foundation, the genetic blueprint that defines this population. At its core, Korean DNA is a unique blend of two major genetic lineages. The first lineage comes from northern East Asia, tracing back to ancient hunter-gatherers who roamed the Amur River Basin and the Mongolian Plateau. These people were resilient, adapted to harsh climates, and laid the groundwork for many of the northern genetic traits we see in Koreans today. The second lineage originates in southern East Asia, carried by Neolithic farmers from the Yellow and Yangtze River basins in China. These farmers brought agriculture, especially millet and rice cultivation, transforming the lifestyles of the ancient populations they encountered. Korea's geographic position played a crucial role in shaping its genetic identity. As a peninsula surrounded by China, Siberia, and Japan, Korea acted as a crossroads for ancient migrations. Populations from the north, south, and even across the sea passed through, leaving behind fragments of their genetic legacy. Yet, despite this influx of genetic material, Korea's semi-isolated position allowed its population to develop a remarkable degree of homogeneity over time. One of the most intriguing genetic contributions comes from the West Liao River region in what is now northeastern China. Studies reveal that the DNA of early Koreans carries a distinctive signature from this area, suggesting that Bronze Age migrations from the West Liao River brought not just new technologies but also the genetic foundation for modern Koreans. These migrants introduced tools, farming techniques, and their own genetic markers, forever shaping the Korean gene pool. But Korean DNA isn't just a product of who came to the peninsula. It's also a product of who stayed. Unlike populations in other parts of East Asia, Koreans experienced less outward migration and fewer external invasions, allowing their genetic makeup to remain relatively stable over millennia. This stability contributed to the development of a unique genetic identity, one that is shared by Koreans across the peninsula and around the world. In many ways, Korean DNA reflects the story of East Asia itself, a region of ancient connections, shared ancestry, and cultural exchange. Yet, what makes Korean DNA truly special is how it has preserved this history while forging its own path. It's a blend of northern resilience and southern ingenuity, shaped by migrations that brought people together and by the land that kept them unified. So, as we move forward, remember this: Korean DNA isn't just about genetics. It's a testament to the journey of humanity. Each strand of DNA is like a thread, weaving together the story of who Koreans are and how they came to be. And this story is only just beginning to be uncovered. Korean DNA isn't just a static snapshot of the present. It's a mosaic of ancient connections, migrations, and shared ancestry. To truly understand its complexity, we need to travel back thousands of years to the time of the Jomon people and the Proto-Koreans. The Jomon were an ancient hunter-gatherer group that thrived in the Japanese archipelago as far back as 13,000 BCE. While their genetic legacy is most associated with Japan, traces of Jomon-related ancestry have been found in ancient Korean populations as well. Archaeological and genetic evidence suggests that up to 30% of early Korean DNA carried markers from the Jomon, especially during the Neolithic and early Bronze Age. These people likely shared a genetic connection with populations in Siberia and the Russian Far East, creating a link between the northern and southern regions of East Asia. But what happened to this Jomon ancestry in Korea? As the Bronze Age unfolded, migrants from northern China began to arrive, bringing with them advanced farming techniques and new tools. These farmers, linked to the West Liao River and Yellow River regions, carried distinct genetic signatures that gradually diluted the Jomon influence. By the time of the Three Kingdoms period in Korea, around the 4th to 5th centuries CE, Jomon-related ancestry had decreased significantly, down to about 7% in most populations. Yet, it remained a notable part of the genetic mosaic, especially in certain individuals from the southern parts of the peninsula. The Proto-Koreans, on the other hand, represent a critical turning point in this story. Emerging from the Bronze Age dagger culture of the West Liao River, the Proto-Koreans are believed to have migrated into the Korean peninsula around 300 BCE. They brought with them not only genetic diversity but also a rich cultural and technological heritage. This migration coincided with a shift in Korea's population dynamics, as indigenous groups intermingled with these newcomers, forming the foundation for modern Korean genetics. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. The Proto-Koreans didn't just stay within Korea. Genetic evidence shows that they played a significant role in the population history of Japan, particularly during the Yayoi period, 300 BCE to 250 CE. During this time, migrants from Korea introduced rice farming and other advanced techniques to the Japanese archipelago, along with their DNA. Today, studies estimate that modern Japanese populations carry around 91% of their ancestry from these Korean migrants, with the remaining 9% tracing back to the Jomon. So, what does this all mean? Korean DNA isn't just a story of one population evolving in isolation. It's a testament to how interconnected ancient East Asia truly was. The Jomon and Proto-Koreans represent two sides of this story, one rooted in ancient hunter-gatherer traditions, the other shaped by the transformative forces of migration and agriculture. Together, they forged a genetic legacy that continues to shape Korea today. But even as the Jomon ancestry faded and the Proto-Korean identity took root, the Korean peninsula remained a dynamic crossroads for culture and genetics. It was a place where ancient peoples met, mingled, and laid the groundwork for a vibrant and resilient society. And it's this blend of history and heritage that makes Korean DNA so special. Korean DNA isn't just remarkable for its deep historical roots. It's also defined by traits and patterns that make it truly one of a kind. What sets it apart from other East Asian populations? The answer lies in its striking combination of homogeneity and subtle but significant genetic markers that tell a story of resilience, adaptation, and legacy. One of the most fascinating aspects of Korean DNA is its incredible homogeneity. Among the world's populations, Koreans are often cited as one of the most genetically uniform. This uniformity stems from Korea's unique history and geography. As a peninsula surrounded by natural barriers like the Yellow Sea and the Sea of Japan, Korea has maintained a level of isolation that prevented large-scale migrations or invasions from outside populations. This stability allowed Koreans to develop a genetic identity that is remarkably consistent across regions, even in modern times. But this homogeneity doesn't mean Korean DNA lacks complexity. In fact, it's filled with unique markers that reflect ancient migrations and adaptations. For example, the Y chromosome haplogroups O2M122 and O1B2M176 are particularly dominant in Korean males. These haplogroups, inherited through paternal lines, link modern Koreans to the Neolithic farmers who brought millet and rice cultivation to the peninsula. These genetic markers also provide a fascinating connection to other East Asian populations, like the Chinese and Japanese, while still maintaining distinct differences. On the maternal side, mitochondrial DNA reveals a much more diverse story. Haplogroups such as D, B, and G, which are common among Koreans, trace their origins to a mix of northern and southern populations. This maternal diversity highlights the role of migrations from regions as far north as Siberia and as far south as Southeast Asia. It's a reminder that while the Korean peninsula developed its own distinct identity, it was also shaped by a flow of people and ideas from across East Asia. Korean DNA also stands out for its adaptations to environmental and cultural factors. For instance, Koreans exhibit unique genetic traits related to alcohol metabolism. Many Koreans carry a variant of the ALDH2 gene that reduces their ability to process alcohol efficiently. While this might seem like a disadvantage, some scientists suggest it could have been an evolutionary response to the introduction of agriculture and fermentation practices in the region. Similarly, genes linked to lactose intolerance are prevalent in Korean populations, reflecting the historically low reliance on dairy in traditional Korean diets. But the uniqueness of Korean DNA isn't just about ancient history. It's also about modern implications. Studies have shown that certain genetic markers in Koreans are associated with resistance to diseases like tuberculosis and certain types of cancers. This resilience is likely the result of millennia of adaptation to specific environmental challenges on the Korean peninsula. These genetic insights are now helping researchers develop precision medicine tailored to the needs of East Asian populations, including Koreans. Another fascinating aspect is how Korean DNA reflects cultural continuity. Despite the many migrations and influences that shaped the Korean peninsula over thousands of years, the genetic makeup of Koreans has remained surprisingly stable. Modern Koreans share an overwhelming majority of their ancestry with populations from the Bronze Age and the Three Kingdoms period. This continuity highlights Korea's ability to absorb outside influences while preserving a core genetic identity that is uniquely its own. In the end, what sets Korean DNA apart is its duality. It is both a reflection of Korea's long history as a crossroads of ancient civilizations and a testament to its ability to maintain a cohesive genetic identity despite these interactions. It's a story of both diversity and unity, one that continues to evolve as new research sheds light on the hidden depths of Korean genetics. As we delve deeper into the migration waves and cultural exchanges that shape Korean DNA, remember this: every unique genetic marker tells a story, not just of biology but of the people, their struggles, their triumphs, and their legacy. This is what makes Korean DNA not just special, but extraordinary. To understand the uniqueness of Korean DNA, we must look at the migration waves that shaped the peninsula over millennia. These waves of movement didn't just bring new people, they brought ideas, technologies, and cultural practices that transformed the region's genetic and historical landscape. The story begins in the Neolithic era when the first major migration wave reached the Korean peninsula. These migrants were early farmers from the Yellow River Basin in northern China. They introduced millet cultivation, one of the earliest forms of agriculture in East Asia. Archaeological evidence shows that these farmers brought with them not only their crops but also a distinct genetic signature that is still present in Koreans today. This migration laid the foundation for Korea's transition from a hunter-gatherer society to a more sedentary, agricultural one. Then came the Bronze Age, a period of profound transformation for the Korean peninsula. Around 3,000 years ago, another wave of migrants arrived, this time from the West Liao River region in northeastern China. These migrants brought bronze tools, advanced farming techniques, and a new layer of genetic diversity. The dagger culture, which spread across the peninsula during this time, is closely associated with these Bronze Age settlers. This period also marks the emergence of the Proto-Koreans, who began to establish the cultural and genetic foundations of modern Korea. But the Bronze Age migrations weren't just about technology. They were also about blending populations. As these new arrivals intermingled with the indigenous people of the peninsula, a unique genetic identity began to emerge. This admixture of northern and southern lineages created a population that was distinct from its neighbors while still retaining traces of shared ancestry with East Asian groups like the Han Chinese and Mongolians. The Iron Age brought yet another wave of change. By this time, Korea was becoming a cultural and trade hub in East Asia, with influences from China, Siberia, and even the Japanese archipelago. These interactions further enriched the Korean gene pool, introducing new genetic markers while reinforcing Korea's role as a bridge between civilizations. It's during this period that the genetic makeup of Koreans began to stabilize, forming the homogeneity we see in modern populations. But Korea's story isn't just about receiving migrations, it's also about being a source of migration. During the Yayoi period in Japan, 300 BCE to 250 CE, migrants from Korea crossed the sea and introduced rice farming and other technologies to the Japanese islands. These migrations left a lasting genetic imprint on modern Japanese populations, with studies showing that a significant portion of Japanese ancestry can be traced back to Korean migrants during this time. What's remarkable about these migration waves is how they shaped not only the genetics of the Korean people but also their cultural identity. The introduction of agriculture, metallurgy, and advanced tools didn't just transform the economy. It influenced the social structures, rituals, and traditions that became uniquely Korean. At the same time, Korea's geography allowed it to maintain a level of isolation that preserved its genetic core, even as it absorbed these external influences. By the time of the Three Kingdoms period, Korea had become a mosaic of genetic and cultural influences, with a population that carried the legacy of all these migrations. Yet, it also marked the point where Korea began to solidify its identity, blending these influences into something uniquely Korean. This ability to adapt and integrate without losing its core is one of the defining traits of Korean history, and it's written in their DNA. The migration waves that shaped Korea are more than just historical events. They are the foundation of a genetic identity that continues to evolve. They remind us that the story of Korean DNA is not just about the past. It's about resilience, adaptation, and the ongoing journey of a people who have always been at the crossroads of history. Korea's story doesn't exist in isolation. Its genetic identity is deeply intertwined with the broader web of East Asia, connecting neighboring populations in a complex network of shared ancestry, cultural exchange, and migration. Let's explore Korea's role in this intricate genetic web and how it has shaped not only its people but also the DNA of its neighbors. One of the most striking connections is between Koreans and the Japanese. During the Yayoi period, which began around 300 BCE, migrants from the Korean Peninsula introduced advanced agricultural practices, such as rice farming, to Japan. This migration wasn't just about tools and techniques. It brought significant genetic contributions to the Japanese population. Studies show that modern Japanese carry up to 91% of their genetic ancestry from these Yayoi migrants, with the remaining 9% linked to the earlier Jomon population of Japan. Despite these shared roots, Koreans and Japanese populations have evolved distinct genetic profiles over time, reflecting their unique histories and environments. Korea's connections to northern East Asia are equally fascinating. Genetic studies reveal strong ties between Koreans and populations in China, Mongolia, and Siberia. These links are particularly evident in the Y chromosome haplogroups shared by Koreans and Northern Han Chinese, as well as by Mongolian and Tungusic-speaking groups. These connections point to ancient migrations that spread not only genes but also cultural traits across the region. For example, the Proto-Korean people, who emerged during the Bronze Age, share genetic markers with populations in the West Liao River region of northeastern China. This shared ancestry highlights Korea's role as both a recipient and a contributor in the exchange of people and ideas across East Asia. But Korea's influence extends beyond its immediate neighbors. The Korean Peninsula has long been a cultural and genetic bridge between northern and southern East Asia. Genetic evidence shows that ancient migrations from Korea contributed to the gene pools of Southeast Asia, albeit on a smaller scale. For instance, haplogroups commonly found in Koreans have been detected in populations as far south as Vietnam, suggesting long-distance exchanges facilitated by trade or migration. The Korean diaspora further extends this web of genetic influence. Today, millions of Koreans live outside the peninsula, in countries like China, Japan, the United States, and Russia. Despite being geographically dispersed, these diaspora populations have maintained a remarkable degree of genetic continuity with their homeland. For example, Korean Chinese communities in northeastern China show genetic markers that closely align with those of Koreans on the peninsula, reflecting a shared heritage despite centuries of separation. Similarly, Koreans in Japan, known as Zainichi Koreans, have preserved their distinct genetic identity, even while integrating into Japanese society. Korea's role in the genetic web of East Asia isn't just about ancestry. It's also about cultural exchange. The movement of people across the region brought with it the spread of technologies, languages, and traditions. Korean artisans and scholars played a key role in transmitting Chinese and Central Asian knowledge to Japan during the Three Kingdoms period, a time when Korea was a hub of intellectual and cultural activity. These exchanges enriched not only the Korean peninsula but also the broader region, leaving an indelible mark on East Asian history. At the same time, Korea's geographic position as a peninsula allowed it to maintain a level of isolation that preserved its genetic distinctiveness. While other parts of East Asia experienced large-scale migrations and invasions, Korea managed to retain a core genetic identity that remains consistent to this day. This balance of connectivity and isolation is what makes Korea's role in the genetic web of East Asia so unique. In the grand tapestry of East Asian genetics, Korea stands out as both a thread and a weaver. It is a bridge between North and South, a link between ancient and modern, and a testament to the interconnectedness of humanity. Korean DNA reminds us that our genetic stories are never just our own. They are part of a larger narrative that spans time, geography, and culture. Korean DNA isn't just a window into the past, it's a blueprint for the future. Today, the genetic history of Koreans is driving advancements in medicine, reshaping our understanding of human evolution, and influencing global research. Let's explore the modern implications of Korean genetics and why it matters not just to Koreans but to the world. One of the most exciting applications of Korean genetic studies lies in the field of precision medicine. Korea's genetic homogeneity, while rooted in history, offers researchers a unique advantage. It allows for more accurate studies on how genes influence health, diseases, and treatment responses. For example, Korean DNA has helped identify genetic markers linked to conditions like stomach cancer, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease, all of which are more prevalent in East Asian populations. By studying these markers, scientists can develop treatments tailored specifically to East Asians, improving outcomes and saving lives. Korean genetic research is also contributing to global studies on rare diseases. Certain genetic variants found in Koreans have been linked to conditions like congenital disorders and autoimmune diseases. These discoveries are providing insights into how these conditions develop and how they might be treated. Moreover, as part of global genome projects, Korean DNA is being used to fill gaps in our understanding of human genetic diversity. This work ensures that populations often underrepresented in genetic studies are included, leading to more equitable advancements in healthcare. But the implications of Korean genetics go beyond medicine. They are helping scientists solve long-standing mysteries about human evolution and migration. For example, recent studies on mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosomes in Koreans have provided clues about how ancient populations moved across East Asia. These findings are reshaping theories about the peopling of the Korean peninsula, the spread of agriculture, and the genetic relationships between Koreans, Japanese, and Chinese populations. The Korean diaspora adds another layer of complexity and opportunity to these studies. Millions of Koreans live outside the peninsula, forming communities in countries like the United States, Canada, and Russia. These populations allow researchers to study how genetics interact with environment, culture, and lifestyle. For example, Korean Americans show differences in health outcomes compared to Koreans in Korea, offering insights into how diet, stress, and other environmental factors influence genetic expression. Beyond science, Korean genetics is reshaping identity and culture. In a world where DNA testing is becoming increasingly popular, many Koreans are using genetic information to trace their ancestry, reconnect with their heritage, and even uncover family histories that were lost to time. This growing interest in genetics is sparking a cultural shift, with Koreans embracing their DNA not just as a biological fact but as a symbol of their shared history and identity. Korean genetics is also playing a role in fostering connections across borders. As studies reveal shared ancestry between Koreans and other East Asians, they are highlighting the deep bonds that unite these populations. It's a reminder that, despite political and cultural differences, our genetic stories are interconnected. Finally, Korean genetics is paving the way for the next generation of discoveries. With initiatives like the Korean Genome Project and collaborations with global research institutions, Korea is positioning itself as a leader in the field of genetics. These efforts are not just about understanding Korean DNA. They're about advancing science, improving healthcare, and deepening our understanding of what it means to be human. The modern implications of Korean genetics are vast and far-reaching. They touch on health, history, culture, and identity, proving that DNA is more than just a sequence of genes. It's a story, a legacy, and a bridge to the future. Korean DNA is special not just because of its past, but because of the promise it holds for what's yet to come. Korean DNA is much more than a record of ancestry. It's a testament to the interconnectedness of humanity and a reminder of how our shared genetic history unites us all. By examining the story of Korean DNA, we uncover lessons that stretch far beyond the borders of the peninsula and into the heart of what it means to be human. One of the most profound lessons is the resilience of culture and identity. Despite countless migrations, cultural exchanges, and genetic admixtures over thousands of years, Koreans have maintained a distinct identity. Their DNA reflects this balance between embracing diversity and preserving tradition. It's a story of adaptation, how ancient populations integrated new ideas, technologies, and genes while holding onto the core elements that define who they are. This resilience also reveals a broader truth. No population evolves in isolation. The story of Korean DNA is a mosaic of connections, linking it to people across East Asia and beyond. Ancient migrations from the West Liao River and Yellow River regions didn't just shape Korea. They connected it to a vast network of civilizations. The Proto-Korean migrations to Japan, for example, demonstrate how populations can influence each other culturally and genetically. Korean DNA serves as a reminder that human history is a shared journey, marked by collaboration and exchange. Another lesson lies in the importance of understanding diversity. While Korean DNA is celebrated for its homogeneity, it's also a product of diversity, of northern hunter-gatherers, southern farmers, and Bronze Age migrants. This duality highlights how diversity is essential for shaping strong, thriving populations. It's a lesson that resonates on a global scale, especially in today's interconnected world, where understanding and appreciating genetic diversity can lead to better healthcare, greater inclusivity, and a deeper sense of unity. Korean DNA also teaches us about the transformative power of technology and innovation. The introduction of agriculture, metallurgy, and other advancements didn't just change the landscape of the Korean peninsula. They altered the course of its people's genetic history. These technological shifts sparked population expansions, migrations, and exchanges that created the genetic foundation we see today. This interplay between culture and genetics reminds us that progress and change are constants in human history, shaping not just our societies but our very biology. Perhaps most importantly, the study of Korean DNA underscores the value of looking to the past to understand the present and future. The genetic markers that reveal ancient migrations and cultural exchanges also hold clues to solving modern challenges. From precision medicine to tracing the origins of diseases, Korean genetics is paving the way for breakthroughs that could benefit people around the world. It's a powerful example of how history and science come together to create a better future. But beyond the science, Korean DNA carries an emotional lesson as well. It reminds us that our identities, while rooted in genetics, are shaped by so much more. By culture, by history, and by the choices we make as individuals and societies. The story of Korean DNA is a story of perseverance, connection, and transformation, and it resonates with anyone who has ever wondered about their place in the world. As we step back and view the bigger picture, we see that Korean DNA isn't just special because of what it reveals about one population, it's special because it connects us all. It's a thread in the vast tapestry of human history, weaving together stories of migration, resilience, and shared humanity. It's a reminder that in every strand of DNA lies the story of us all. So, what can we learn from Korean DNA? That our differences are beautiful, our connections are profound, and our histories are deeply intertwined. In the end, Korean DNA isn't just a story of one people. It's a celebration of the human story. Korean DNA is more than just a sequence of genes. It's a legacy, a living history that connects the past, the present, and the future. From ancient migrations to modern medicine, the story of Korean DNA reveals how deeply intertwined genetics, culture, and identity truly are. We've seen how the Korean peninsula served as a crossroads of civilizations, blending northern and southern genetic lineages into a population that is both unique and universal. We've uncovered the ancient connections to Jomon ancestry, the Proto-Korean migrations, and the Bronze Age transformations that laid the foundation for Korea's distinct genetic profile. And we've explored how this genetic heritage continues to shape the lives of Koreans today, influencing their health, identity, and even their place in the world. But Korean DNA isn't just a story about one population. It's a microcosm of the human experience, a testament to how migrations, innovations, and shared histories shape all of us. It's a reminder that our differences make us unique, but our connections make us stronger. As research into Korean genetics continues, there's so much more to uncover. Each new discovery brings us closer to understanding not just the history of Korea, but the history of humanity itself. It's a story that inspires curiosity, fosters connection, and reminds us of the incredible journey that brought us to where we are today. So, as we close this chapter on Korean DNA, one question remains: what will the next chapter reveal? Perhaps it will be a breakthrough in medicine, a new insight into our shared ancestry, or even a deeper understanding of what makes us human. One thing is certain: Korean DNA is more than special. It's extraordinary, and its story is far from over. What part of this incredible journey fascinated you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed exploring the world of Korean DNA, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories about the wonders of our past, present, and future.